Sometimes the difference between one house and another cannot be explained by size, light, or design. You step inside and before you have time to think, your chest responds. Your shoulders lower. Your breath changes. Nothing dramatic happens. No sound announces itself. And yet something feels settled. You may have felt this without naming it. A home where silence feels gentle instead of heavy. A place where even exhaustion seems to rest. Where worries do not disappear, but they loosen their grip just enough for you to breathe. And you may have wondered quietly, without ever saying it out loud, why does this place feel different? There are houses filled with activity, laughter, noise, yet something inside you tightens the longer you stay. And then there are homes with very little, no luxury, no perfection, where the heart softens almost immediately. You sit down and your thoughts slow. You stand up and you feel steadier than before. What is it that enters a space before words ever do? You might dismiss it as mood, as imagination, as coincidence, but notice how often your body recognizes something before your mind agrees. Why does rest come more easily in certain rooms? Why do conversations soften in some homes, even when difficult topics are discussed? Why does anger hesitate there, as if something unseen is asking it to lower its voice? Ibn Arabi taught that nothing truly arrives without permission. Not people, not moments, not even feelings. He wrote that presence itself carries meaning, and that the unseen does not announce itself with force but with subtle order. According to this understanding, what you sense in a place is not random. It is the echo of intention, sincerity, and remembrance that has settled there over time. This does not mean every quiet home is holy or every peaceful moment is a sign. It means awareness matters. The heart notices patterns long before the mind constructs explanations. And when the heart begins to notice, it is often because it is being invited to look more closely. Think about the last time you entered a space and immediately felt relief. No reason, no clear cause, just a gentle easing. Or perhaps the opposite, a place where restlessness followed you from room to room, even when nothing was wrong. Why does your inner state respond so quickly to certain environments? And why does that response feel so personal? Many people assume that if angels were present somewhere, there would be something obvious to point to, a visible sign, a dramatic moment. But the masters of spiritual insight understood something different. They taught that angels do not arrive to impress. They arrive to assist, and assistance rarely announces itself. If angels are present in a home, the first sign is not something you see. It is something you feel and often overlook. A calm that enters without explanation. A heaviness that lifts without effort. A sense that, even in the middle of struggle, you are not entirely alone. This does not mean the house is free from problems. It does not mean life becomes easy once you step inside. It means that something within the space is working quietly, softening what follows. Reactions become slower. Words become more careful. Even silence feels held rather than empty. You may have noticed this in your own home on certain nights. When the world feels loud and overwhelming, yet inside, there is a small pocket of stillness. Or perhaps you've experienced it in someone else's home, leaving with a sense of calm you didn't arrive with. And later, you try to explain it, but you can't. You only know how it felt. What if that feeling is not accidental? What if it is not imagination? What if it is a sign, not dramatic, not mystical, but deeply human and quietly sacred? Ibn Arabi reminded us that the unseen does not interrupt life. It moves through it. And when something unseen is present, it often reveals itself not by changing circumstances, but by changing how those circumstances are carried. So before looking for signs in walls or objects or outward symbols, the invitation is simpler. Notice your breath. Notice your reactions. Notice how your heart behaves in certain spaces. Because if angels are present in a home, the first place they are felt is not the room, it is the soul. And this is only the beginning. When people speak about the unseen, they often imagine distance, something far away from daily life, something reserved for rare moments or extraordinary people. But Ibn Arabi taught the opposite. He taught that the unseen is not elsewhere, it is woven into the fabric of the ordinary. It does not descend suddenly. It reveals itself slowly, through meaning rather than spectacle. According to Ibn Arabi, nothing in existence is isolated. Every moment, every movement, every stillness unfolds within divine order. What appears accidental is only unseen in its wisdom, and what feels subtle is often the most deliberate. The unseen does not compete with the visible world. It supports it, shapes it, and gently guides it. This is why angelic presence in Sufi understanding is never loud. Angels are not sent to astonish the senses. They are sent to carry out mercy, protection, and alignment. And these things rarely require drama. They require precision, quiet precision. Many people assume that angels are drawn to perfection, to spotless homes, flawless behavior, uninterrupted devotion. But Ibn Arabi was clear. Divine response is not triggered by appearances. It is drawn by sincerity. A heart that turns toward Allah, even briefly, creates an opening in the unseen. And where there is an opening, something responds. You see this in everyday life, even if you have never named it. A person who remembers Allah quietly while washing dishes. Someone who pauses before speaking harshly, not to appear righteous, but because something inside softens. A servant who prays while exhausted, not with eloquence, but with honesty. According to Ibn Arabi, these moments carry weight far beyond what they look like. The unseen responds not to how things look, but to why they are done. Angels, by Allah's command, move toward spaces where truthfulness lives, not where people pretend to be strong, but where they admit their weakness, not where everything is in order, but where the heart is facing the right direction. This is why some homes feel held, even when life inside them is difficult. The unseen is not repelled by struggle, it is repelled by heedlessness. And this is an important distinction. Heedlessness is not the same as imperfection. Heedlessness is forgetting why you exist. Struggle, on the other hand, often sharpens remembrance. Ibn Arabi wrote that when the heart remembers Allah sincerely, the veil thins, not all at once and not forever, but enough for assistance to arrive. This assistance does not announce itself. It does not change the laws of life. Bills still need to be paid, illness still appears, loss still happens. But something within the environment begins to work differently. Reactions soften, conflicts de-escalate before they deepen, strength appears where exhaustion once lived. This is why the unseen is felt before it is understood. You don't wake up one day and say, "Angels have arrived." You notice instead that your patience lasts longer than it used to, that your home feels calmer at night, that anger no longer spreads as quickly. These shifts are not coincidences. They are the traces of mercy moving quietly. Ibn Arabi often emphasized that divine help does not always remove hardship. More often, it reshapes how hardship touches the heart. The unseen arranges itself around sincerity, creating subtle shelter. Not a shield that blocks all difficulty, but a covering that prevents difficulty from destroying what matters most. This is why angels do not need space. They do not need perfection. They do not need attention. They work where intention lives. And intention, as Ibn Arabi taught, is not measured by words but by orientation. Where the heart is facing matters more than what the hands are doing. So if you sense that something in your home has shifted, not outwardly but inwardly, it may be because the unseen has responded to something small and sincere. A quiet remembrance, a moment of restraint, a tear shed in private. These moments do not disappear, they echo. And once the unseen begins to move, it leaves signs behind. Not signs in objects or symbols, but signs within the human experience itself. In the next part, we will speak about the first of those signs, the way peace enters a home without asking permission, and why that quiet change is often the clearest indication that something unseen is present. Peace rarely arrives the way people expect it to. It does not always come after problems are solved or when life finally makes sense. Often, it arrives while the problems are still there, quietly changing how they are carried. You may have noticed this without realizing what it was. A calm that settles into the chest at the end of a long day. A night where sleep comes more easily, even though nothing has been resolved. A moment of stillness that appears without explanation. This is often the first sign that something unseen is present in a home. Not excitement, not sudden happiness, but peace, subtle, unforced, and easy to overlook. You may remember a time when your thoughts used to race the moment you lay down, replaying conversations, worries, unfinished plans. And then without effort, something shifted. The same life, the same responsibilities, yet the noise inside softened. Your breathing slowed. The body rested before the mind could object. Why does that happen? And why does it happen in certain spaces more than others? Ibn Arabi taught that tranquility is not a reward for solving life. It is a gift placed in the heart when the heart becomes receptive. According to his understanding, peace often arrives before circumstances change, not after. It prepares the soul to endure what cannot yet be removed. This is why peace feels different from relief. Relief depends on outcomes. Peace does not. Peace is what allows you to sit inside uncertainty without being consumed by it. And when peace enters a home, it does so quietly. It does not announce itself. It simply takes its place. You may notice it in small, ordinary ways. Conversations that would have escalated now slow down. Words are chosen more carefully. Silence becomes comfortable instead of tense. Even disagreements feel less sharp, as if something unseen is absorbing the edges. This does not mean the home has become free of struggle. It means struggle is no longer running everything. There is space between stimulus and reaction, a pause where there used to be none. And in that pause, something protective is at work. Many people mistake this peace for emotional numbness or avoidance, but it is neither. Numbness disconnects you from life. Peace allows you to remain present without being overwhelmed. Ibn Arabi described this as alignment, the heart settling into its proper orientation, even while the outer world remains unstable. Think of a home where grief exists but bitterness does not take over, or a family under financial pressure, yet arguments do not spiral the way they once did, or a person living alone, facing uncertainty but feeling held rather than abandoned. These are not dramatic changes. They are subtle, and that is why they matter. Angels, when present, do not rearrange furniture or remove difficulties. They soften what follows. They carry out Allah's mercy by creating conditions where the heart can remain intact, and peace is often the first condition that appears. You may feel this peace most strongly at certain times, late at night, early in the morning, or in moments of quiet remembrance. Or you may notice it after a long day when exhaustion should make everything harder, yet somehow it doesn't. Why does fatigue sometimes feel lighter instead of heavier? According to Ibn Arabi, when the heart turns toward truth, even briefly, the unseen aligns around it. This alignment does not eliminate hardship, but it changes how hardship is experienced. Burdens feel shared. Pain feels survivable. Confusion does not spiral into despair. These are not coincidences. And the most important thing to understand is this: peace does not enter a home because everything inside it is good. It enters because something inside it is sincere. Someone within that space is remembering Allah, even imperfectly. Someone is choosing restraint over reaction. Someone is turning quietly without being seen. This is why peace often arrives without permission. It does not wait for readiness. It arrives when sincerity opens the door. If you have noticed this in your own home, even briefly, then something unseen has already responded. And once peace enters, it rarely comes alone. Because where peace settles, protection soon follows. And that protection often reveals itself in ways you never see. In the next part, we will speak about the second hidden sign, the kind of protection that works in silence, guarding you from harm without ever asking to be noticed. Not all protection looks like rescue. Most of it doesn't. In fact, the most consistent form of divine protection is the kind you only recognize in hindsight, if you recognize it at all. A moment delayed, a decision interrupted, a path that quietly closes before you have time to insist on it. You may have experienced this without nomming it, a plan that fell apart at the last minute, a conversation you almost had but didn't, a choice you were certain about until something inside you hesitated. At the time, it may have felt frustrating or confusing. Only later did you realize what that pause saved you from. Ibn Arabi taught that divine protection rarely appears as dramatic intervention. More often, it arrives as interruption. The unseen does not always remove danger. It redirects movement. It bends moments away from harm before harm has a chance to fully form. This is why many of the greatest protections go unnoticed. Nothing happens, and so they are easy to dismiss. But consider how often life could have gone differently, how close certain moments came to causing damage that never occurred. Why did the argument stop before it escalated? Why did the door remain closed even when you pushed? Why did you feel restrained at the exact moment restraint mattered? According to Ibn Arabi, angels move by Allah's command to guard what cannot yet be seen. They do not shout warnings. They do not force obedience. They soften outcomes. They delay what needs delaying. They prevent what does not need to arrive. You might notice this kind of protection within the home first. Conflicts that once erupted now lose their intensity. Words that would have wounded remain unspoken. Tempers cool faster. Even when emotions rise, something holds them back from crossing a line that cannot be uncrossed. This does not mean people become perfect. It means damage is limited, and limiting damage is one of the greatest forms of mercy. Sometimes protection appears as inconvenience, a missed appointment, a plan that doesn't work out, a delay that feels pointless. At the time, it can feel like loss. But Ibn Arabi reminded us that not every closed door is rejection. Some are shelter. You may have wanted something deeply, certain it was good, only to be prevented from reaching it. And later, perhaps much later, you understood why. Or perhaps you never did. Protection does not always come with explanation. It comes with outcome. And there is another way this unseen protection works. Not around you, but within you. You begin to notice hesitation before harm, a pause where impulse once ruled, a quiet resistance to actions that would have caused regret. This hesitation is not fear, it is care arriving early. Many people confuse this with self-doubt or weakness, but Ibn Arabi understood it as guidance. When the heart is being guarded, it becomes sensitive to consequence before consequence arrives. Desire no longer rushes unchecked. Anger no longer moves freely. Something unseen steps in, not to control you, but to protect what you are becoming. Protection does not mean life becomes smooth. You may still face difficulty, disappointment, or loss, but notice how often those difficulties stop short of destroying you. Notice how often harm is reduced, redirected, or softened. That is not luck. That is mercy in motion. Angels, when present, do not stand in front of you. They work around you. They shape conditions, limit damage, and preserve what matters most. And they do so quietly without recognition. This is why protection is such a subtle sign. It asks you to notice what did not happen, the pain that never arrived, the mistake that never completed itself, the harm that was diverted without your awareness. If you sense that something unseen has been guarding you, not by removing struggle but by preventing disaster, then that awareness itself is meaningful. It means your life is being held with care, even when you cannot see the hands. And this protection is not the end of the story, because once harm is softened and damage is limited, something deeper begins to change. The heart itself starts to respond differently to the world. In the next part, we will speak about the third hidden sign, what it means when the heart begins to resist harm before it happens, and why this quiet resistance is one of the clearest signs that angels are near. There is a moment many people don't recognize for what it is, a moment when something that once felt easy suddenly feels heavy, not after it happens, but before. You pause, you hesitate, your heart tightens just enough to make you stop and ask yourself, why doesn't this feel right anymore? This quiet resistance is not weakness, it is not fear, and it is not guilt. It is one of the clearest signs that something unseen is guarding you. You may remember a time when certain words came quickly to your tongue, when reacting felt natural, when temptation pulled without resistance, and now something has changed. You feel a pause where there used to be none, a discomfort that arrives before action, not after. Why does your heart interrupt you now when it once remained silent? Ibn Arabi taught that as the heart awakens, it becomes sensitive to what harms it, not because desire disappears, but because awareness deepens. The heart begins to recognize consequences before the body moves. This recognition is not intellectual, it is felt, and that feeling is mercy arriving early. Many people mistake this inner resistance for anxiety. They assume something is wrong with them because things no longer feel as satisfying as they once did. But in Sufi understanding, this shift is not loss, it is elevation. When temptation begins to lose its sweetness, when certain paths feel hollow before they are taken, it is because the soul is being gently redirected. You may notice this in small, everyday ways. Conversations that once entertained you now leave you empty. Habits you once defended no longer sit comfortably within you. Certain environments begin to feel heavy, not because they are evil, but because they no longer align with who you are becoming. This is not boredom, it is awareness. Angels, when present, do not force you away from harm. They weaken its grip. They create hesitation. They make space for choice. Ibn Arabi wrote that guidance often appears as restraint, not imposed from outside, but rising from within. A quiet no forming before a mistake has time to take shape. This is why sin begins to feel heavy before it happens. The heart senses what the mind has not yet calculated, and that heaviness is not condemnation. It is protection, a reminder that you are being cared for enough to be stopped. Think of how different this is from fear. Fear pushes, it overwhelms. This resistance does neither. It simply asks you to slow down, to reconsider, to choose differently. And even when you don't choose perfectly, the presence of that resistance itself is meaningful. Ibn Arabi taught that angels assist by aligning the heart with truth. They do not remove free will, they sharpen awareness. And as awareness sharpens, the soul naturally turns away from what dims it, not through struggle but through clarity. This is why things that once excited you may now feel empty, why desires that once felt urgent now feel distant, why your inner world feels quieter even when your outer life remains busy. The heart is learning to recognize what nourishes it and what does not. And this learning does not happen in isolation. It happens in environments where sincerity lives, homes where remembrance is present, even quietly, spaces where turning toward Allah, however imperfectly, has become familiar. If you have noticed this change in yourself, this hesitation, this soft resistance, then something unseen is already working within you. This is not you becoming smaller, it is you becoming more protected. And when the heart begins to resist harm on its own, something even deeper soon follows. A release, a letting go that does not require force or struggle. In the next part, we will speak about the deepest sign of all, the moment when letting go begins to happen naturally, and the soul starts to breathe more freely than it ever has before. There comes a moment that cannot be rushed, a moment when the heart releases something it once held tightly, not because it was forced to, and not because it was afraid, but because it no longer needs to. This is one of the deepest signs that something unseen is at work within you. Letting go does not always look dramatic. Often, it happens quietly, almost unnoticed. A habit fades without a struggle. An attachment loosens without grief. An identity you once defended no longer feels necessary. You wake up one day and realize that something which once weighed heavily on your soul no longer occupies the same space inside you. Ibn Arabi taught that when light enters the heart, darkness does not need to be fought. It simply loses its hold. The soul, once aware of what truly nourishes it, naturally turns away from what drains it. This turning is not an act of discipline. It is an act of recognition. You may notice this shift in subtle ways. You no longer feel compelled to prove yourself. Certain arguments no longer interest you. You stop chasing explanations for every wound, not because the wounds vanished, but because they no longer define you. Something within you has become steadier. This is not loss, this is purification. Many people fear letting go because they believe it will leave them empty, but what often happens is the opposite. As the heart releases what burdens it, space opens for something lighter to enter. Calm replaces tension. Clarity replaces confusion. Even pain, when it remains, becomes quieter, less consuming. According to Ibn Arabi, true transformation does not arrive with force. It arrives with alignment. When the heart aligns with truth, it no longer needs to cling to what once felt essential. This is why real change often surprises us. We expect struggle, but instead we find ease. You may still live with difficulty. Life does not suddenly become smooth. Responsibilities remain. Loss may still be present, but notice how these things touch you differently now. They no longer shake you at your core. You carry them without being crushed. You bend, but you do not break. This is one of the greatest forms of divine protection. Not the removal of hardship, but the strengthening of the inner ground on which you stand. Angels do not always clear the path ahead. Sometimes they stabilize the ground beneath your feet. Letting go also brings a new kind of honesty. You stop pretending to be stronger than you are. You stop hiding your need for Allah. And in that honesty, something sacred happens. Ibn Arabi taught that Allah responds not to perfection, but to turning. Even the smallest turning of the heart invites immense mercy. This is why the deepest changes often happen in private. No one else may notice. Outwardly, your life may look the same, but inwardly something has shifted. You breathe more freely. You react less harshly. You trust more deeply, even without answers. And this shift does not come from effort alone. It comes from being accompanied, from being held by unseen care that allows the soul to soften without collapsing. If you find that letting go is happening in your life, not all at once but gradually, then this is not coincidence. This is guidance unfolding at its own pace. The unseen is not rushing you, it is preparing you. And when this kind of release begins, it leads to something even more profound. A quiet certainty, an inner steadiness that does not depend on circumstances. In the next part, we will speak about what it means if this is happening to you right now, and why this stage of the journey is one of the greatest signs of divine kindness. If you recognize yourself in these signs, it may feel difficult to explain what is changing inside you. You may not have the language for it. You only know that you are not the same as you once were. Your reactions are softer. Your inner world is quieter. Even when life remains demanding, something within you feels steadier, as if you are no longer standing on shifting ground. This does not mean you have reached an end. It means you have entered a different stage, a stage where the heart begins to trust what it cannot fully see. Many people assume that spiritual growth looks dramatic from the outside, that it must be marked by visible change, certainty, or confidence. But Ibn Arabi taught that the most profound transformations are subtle. They unfold inwardly, quietly, often without recognition. And because they are quiet, they are easy to doubt. You may still struggle. You may still feel tired. You may still carry unanswered questions. But notice how those questions no longer unravel you. Notice how fatigue does not turn into despair the way it once did. There is space now between what happens and how deeply it reaches you. This space is a gift. Ibn Arabi described this as inner steadiness, a state where the heart remains anchored even when circumstances are unstable. It does not mean pain disappears. It means pain no longer defines the entire landscape of your soul. You feel it, but you are not consumed by it. If this is happening to you, it is not because you have done everything right. It is because something sincere within you has been seen. Allah does not wait for flawlessness. He responds to honesty, to the quiet moments when you turn toward Him without being certain, without being strong, without being seen. The Prophet _FDFA taught that when Allah loves a servant, He calls Jibril and says, "I love this servant, so love him." And then love is placed for that servant among creation. But before it appears outwardly, it begins inwardly, as tranquility, as restraint, as patience that arrives when it is needed most. This is why not everyone experiences this shift. Some people search for years and never find it. Others receive it quietly and doubt its meaning. If you are noticing even a small change, a softer heart, a calmer response, a gentler relationship with yourself, then something sacred is taking place. And this is not something to rush. It cannot be forced. It is something to recognize with humility, to receive with gratitude, to protect by staying sincere. You may still be learning. You may still fall short. That does not undo what has begun. What matters is the direction your heart is facing. Ibn Arabi reminded us that direction matters more than distance. A heart facing Allah, even from far away, is closer than it realizes. So if today you feel a little lighter than you once did, if your chest feels a little more open, if your reactions have slowed, then pause. Do not rush past this moment. Notice it, breathe into it, let it settle. Because awareness itself is part of the gift. And as this awareness deepens, it naturally leads to reflection, to a quiet question that only you can answer, a question that does not demand certainty, only honesty. And that is where we will end.